What's up, guys? We are back with another Kill Rationalism video. We're going to be talking about the different forms of thought and realization. I'm very excited because this is truly an irrational endeavor. Now, we already know the mental way of coming to knowledge, coming to realization, all that stuff. Today, we're going to be going in a different direction. We're going to go through all the structures, the magical, the mythical, the mental, just a little bit, and then the integral, and we're going to see how these affect us on a daily basis. Unfortunately, I do not have time to give a phenomenological accounting of each structure. Those are kind of prerequisites for this series in my channel, so if you don't know how these work phenomenologically, please go watch my Gebser videos about the magic structure, the mythic structure, the mental, and the integral. So without further ado, let's get into it. Now, if we strip the phenomenology and stick with just with the surface level, everything magical structure is tied up with our pre-rational faculties, so experiential, essentially. Emotions, instincts. What is the mantra for the pre-rationality? Acting without thinking. Okay, so it stands to reason, if that reason is irrational, that if the magic structure emphasizes experience, then its form of thought and realization would also emphasize experience, which leads us to experiential knowledge. And experiential knowledge is nothing if not the unbeknownst realization of unity between the individual and the world. I'm going to repeat for emphasis. Experiential knowledge is nothing if not the unbeknownst realization of unity between the individual and the world. Everything is automatic, everything is unified, just like that. So let's give an example. Let's say you saw me at the grocery store and you don't like me. You think I'm a bad guy and you want to beat me up, but you want to trick me. So you go, "Hey, Justin, I want to talk Gebser with you." And I go, "Wow, great. No one's ever, wanted to talk to me about Gebser in my personal life. Let's go do it." So as I go outside and I turn the corner, you throw a fist my way, right? And as the fist is coming my way, I don't want to feel that pain, so I avoid instinctually and automatically. That simple experience right there is a great example of experiential knowledge. It happens automatically and it happens instinctually, and you feel compelled rather than you imposing space between you and the world and doing all this abstract conceptualization. Because, of course, if we were doing the rational way of doing things, and if a rationalist were to object to us and say, "Justin, that's not true knowledge, that's just trusting your senses and getting lucky every once in a while." Okay, so what a rationalist would say is they would turn the corner, and as the fist is coming to them, they would impose space between the world and do all these rational calculations. So they would draw ontological distinctions, where they would say, okay, well, is the fist an extension of the arm? Is it just the fingers? Is it just the knuckles? Or is it something else? Is it an extension of the human? So they do all these ontological calculations, and then they do all the calculations in regards to its significance. Well, is a fist necessarily a bad thing? Because, yeah, it can hurt, but, people have used it in protest, and people generally like that. Of course, the elephant in the room is, as this is taking place, the fist would come and knock your teeth out and break your nose. So this is the benefit of experiential knowledge, is the unbeknownst realization of unity between the individual and the world. So I, the individual, am unified with the world, and I know that because if I don't recognize that fact, I'm going to walk out of here with 3 less teeth, and that is going to be painful. So because everything is experiential, there's not too much to say about it. The only thing I will say about it is I think, to put in Heidegger's language, he's kind of touched on this idea of the magic structure's form of knowledge. Because remember, Heidegger's idea is that the object and its significance are co-present, and that's exactly what we saw here with this example. The object, the fist, and its significance being defined as how it's being related to, are co-present insofar as I automatically know it's a fist, and I automatically know it's a fist to be avoided, as opposed to if I were maybe at an old Black Panther protest or maybe a current BLM protest, and I saw a fist, I know the object, but now its significance is different, depending on, let's say I support that political party, now my relation to it is something to emulate and copy. I will also throw up the fist. So pretty cool, I think. All right, let's move on to the mythical structure. So the mythical structure is kind of cool because it's twofold. Number one is an undergone experience. Now, experience, of course, as we just discovered, is tied up with the magic structure, and the magic structure is one-dimensional. So what delineates an undergone experience from experiential knowledge is two-dimensionality, and the same thing that the mythical structure delineates from the magical structure, two-dimensional. So where the magical structure sees only the world, the mythical structure sees the world and the soul, how the world impacts the soul. So an undergone experience is essentially any experience in which the soul emerges as the primary organ of perception. That is an undergone experience. Any experience you have in this world, and it truly is an experience, it can be conceptualized after the fact, but when you're in it, it's an experience, which the soul becomes a primary organ of perception. You feel this is way beyond any sort of rational whatever. This is not just a work problem. This is something deep. This is borderline spiritual. So example, obviously, would be losing your loved one, which is obviously terrible. You are unified with the world, that's a magic structure, insofar as you cannot outrun the raw experience of sorrow and pain. There you go. And yet you also have a window open to its effect on your soul. So you move through the poles of life and death, renewal and decay, and hopefully you come out of it with a quote-unquote truth of the soul. So even if it's just something as simple as life is precious and you should love your loved ones more and be more present with them after you, God forbid, lost a brother or sister or mother or father. Not only are you experiencing the pre-rational pain of all that, but also how it affects your soul. So hopefully in a positive sense, you would say, well, this makes me more appreciative of what I have and the people in my life, and I'm more thankful. In a negative sense, to say, well, nothing matters because everything's going to die and all that stuff. So that's an underground experience, an undergone experience, excuse me. These are commonly reduced to being, quote-unquote, the soft forms of truth today by rationalists. To a certain extent, they are correct, because as great as these forms of truths are and as deeper, it's like Gebser said, the soul teaches us what our understanding, that's rational understanding, cannot grasp or estimate. So the knowledge transmitted from the mythical structure is simply deeper and more profound than any sort of limited mental scientific knowledge. So it depends on what you want to define as soft and hard truth, but at the same time, you can't really measure it, so the rationalists do have a point there. Okay, so rational thinking, we're not going to say too much about it because we have... Oh, shoot. I messed up. Give me 1 second. Okay. That was the first one, the undergone experience. That's point number 1. Now we're going to move to circular / oceanic thinking. Just give me 1 second. I do apologize. Okay. Now this is cool because this is truly a different form of thought, if you want to call it that, but it's a sort of proto-thought employed by the likes of Heraclitus and such. What the Stooges were to punk, oceanic thinking is to rationality. So when people describe the Stooges, who, if you don't like, by the way, this is not the channel for you, as proto-punk, what we're about to cover, circular oceanic thinking, is proto-rationality. Example. Quote, this is from Heraclitus. For souls, it is death to become water. For water, it is death to become earth. But from the earth comes water, and from water, soul. Now remember, I know I said I wasn't going to touch the phenomenology here, but remember the mythical structure. Everything is understood through this polar nexus, right? Night and day, midday, midnight, the 2 seasons, winter and summer, everything is understood through this polar cycle, all right? Now, if you know my Gebser series, you already know this, but we're going to go through this. I wrote this down. This form of thought follows the 2D flats dimensional circle. So let's go through it again. Quote, for souls, it is death to become water. So we have soul is A, and then we're moving from soul to water. So A to B. For soul, it is death to become water. For water, it is death to become earth. So A is soul, B is water, and then water, we move down to earth, which is C. But from the earth comes water, and from water, soul. So we start and end at the same place, which is soul. And then, of course, death is the content inside. So pretty cool, huh? So if you were a philosophy guy and you struggled with understanding Heraclitus in this so-called circular or oceanic thinking, well, this is your guide here. For souls, it is death to become water, A to B. For water is death to become earth, B to C. But from the earth comes water, C to B, and from water, soul. AB, BC, CB, BA, and a nice little 2-dimensional circle. So I think that is pretty freaking cool, if you ask me. So those are the 2 forms of thought and realization that belong to the mythical structure, undergone experience and circular thinking. Then, of course, we have the mental structure and traditional rational thinking. We have already discussed this in the series. I'm not going to spend too much time on it because that's the whole point of the series. The only thing we need to cover is that you have to remember the one or the other nature of rationality, which should be understood at this point, and that the mental structure privileges the mythical right, which is the Apollonian, and not the mythical left. So the mythical right would be privileging values like reserve, order, boundary, creation, the stoic masculine traits, this sort of ability to have the world throw itself at you, and through toughness and will and a strong masculine approach, through logic, rationality, you will be able to bear those consequences. That is what the mental structure privileges. The mythical right, the Apollonian, and this either-or way of thinking. Okay. So now, just like we did with circular thinking, we're going to get into paradoxical or aperspectival thinking, or if you want to call it integral thinking. So intended to transcend the merely rational by integrating it with the irrational, we have a classic example of a paradox. Quote, "You would not seek me if you had not found me." That is a paradoxical statement. You would not seek me if you had not found me. This paradoxical statement employs an if and hence draws an inference, which shows that it belongs to the mental structure. At the same time, it contains a psychic reversal since, in rational terms, the second part is not a result of the first, but rather the opposite. Both rational and irrational are at play, and that is what a paradox is. A paradox, transcending the merely rational, represents the covalidity of the rational and the irrational, as expressed by the statement, "You would not seek me if you had not found me." That is why it transcends rationale. Rationality can give you exactly that, rationality. But paradox can give you both, rational and irrational. Okay, so let's break it down even further. We have two tautologies, right? You would not seek me if you had not sought me. Tautology, right? That's A. B, you would not find me if you had not... you would not find me if you had not found me. So that's the second tautology. We have A and B. Remember when I said the mental structure privileges the right over the left, the conscious, the diurnal waking consciousness, the Apollonian over the Dionysian left? Well, what happens when you move left to right and right to left? So A, you would not seek me if you had not sought me. B, you would not find me if you had not found me. So a paradox, how that works is it takes right and switches it to left, and takes left and switches it to right. Now, here's the super cool part. Since this is Kill Rationalism, I know you guys know the importance of the vanishing point and the triangular thought form. So the traditional rational three-dimensional way of doing things is posit one thing that's quantifiably measurable and consciously known, posit another thing that's quantifiably measurable and consciously known in an antithetical dualistic sense, meaning they're not the same, they're not complements, and then invoke the third act of measuring thought to form a synthesis or privilege one over the other. So we have the base of the triangle, convergence at the top, right? The triangular thought form. But if you switch A to B and B to A, the vanishing point, the limiting point of rationality, is transcended by showing that there is something beyond the vanishing point. What is beyond the vanishing point? Aperspectivity and paradoxical thinking. So we have a visual, geometric example or expression of the vanishing point being superseded, right? So what a rationalist would tell you is that this limiting point is essentially the limitation of the world, if they're a rationalist at least, because that's it. You can't understand anything about them, anything outside of that. What Jean Gebser would say is you can understand a whole lot about the world outside of this limiting point. It's just not going to come in the form of perspectival rational thinking. It's going to come in the form of aperspectival, paradoxical thinking. And yeah, that's pretty much the end of this video. So we got the magic structure experiential knowledge, which is a one-dimensional unity. We have the the co-presence of the object and its significance. It happens automatically. I'm not saying this way of understanding it isn't useful at all to give it the rational treatment, so to speak, but that's experiential knowledge. We have undergone experience, which is any experience that is so impacting to your internal state that the soul emerges as the primary organ of perception. Then we also have oceanic thinking, that circular oceanic thinking that we got into Heraclitus. We have the traditional rational mental, which we've covered. And then we have integral, paradoxical, aperspectival thinking. So yes, there are different modes of thought and realization outside of just the rational, and we rely on these every single day of our lives to survive. Actually, no, I was going to say survive and thrive, merely just to survive. Of course, they can be invoked to help us thrive, and they often are, because why wouldn't we want to? But yeah, we wouldn't be able to survive a single day without any of this together. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope you guys learned something, and thank you guys for sticking around. I love you guys.